and thanks for joining us on NTA News Nationwide. I am Shegun Lawole. As leaders of the 25 countries of the Western Central Africa and the Gulf of Guinea Commission resolved to tackle piracy and armed robbery in that Gulf region for tangible economic benefits, concerned Nigerian ministers spoke on what it means. The Yaoundé meeting also afforded President Goodluck Jonathan to speak on getting right with governance at home. State House correspondent Ima Okondo reports.
During the Yaoundé summit, it was revealed that because of oil theft, $100 billion is lost annually since 2003 in the region, as well as stagnation in fishing by $200 billion in 5 decades. So the leaders' resolution to stop this and the impact on the 200 million people living in their countries is heartwarming. Nigeria's ministers of Interior, Transport, and that in charge of defense reflected.
I think that a frequent meeting of this nature of heads of governments and relevant officials of the various countries is indicative of how far we have come in trying to secure our borders, security, and everything that has to do with a neighborly relationship.
From the shippers abroad, everybody is afraid of coming into our waters, and that is why it is of extreme importance that the synergy and the cooperation between member states of these regions should take place.
I believe that from the discussions that have ensued, there is hope. You can see the commitments from the 3 sub-regional bodies, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, and then the ECAS, Economic Community of Central African States, and indeed the Gulf of Guinea Commission. And therefore, we are very hopeful.
Separately, President Jonathan told some of the 4 million Nigerians living in Cameroon of developments at home, where he said some information coming out as skewed to misdirect them. He said in health, MDGs, power, agri, and the privatization process, a lot has been done, corroborated by the recent meeting of the Honorary International Investor Council of Nigeria, whose members are generally interested in Nigeria's good.
Can I promise you that we'll continue to work very hard, and all the promises we made during the education. We have challenges, no doubt about that. I can assure you Nigerians that we are on course and will make you happy.
I'm Ima Kondo, NTA News.
The national chairman of People's Democratic Party, PDP, Alhaji Bamanga Tukur, says PDP will continue to deliver good dividends of democracy to the people and make life more meaningful in the years ahead with the support of all Nigerians. Alhaji Tukur stated this when he received the PDP Reloaded project team in Abuja. Political correspondent Femi Johnson reports.
The chairman of the project team, Senator Ibrahim Mantu, says PDP's internal resolution mechanism and conflict resolution tactics are worthy of emulation by other political parties. He added that the PDP Reloaded project team is out to complement the agenda of the party's leadership at the grassroots.
We feel that there is a need for us to come here and solidify with you and to congratulate you for the way and manner that executive session was handled.
The PDP national chairman, Alhaji Bamanga Tukur, says the party is the most accepted, respected, and trusted party in Nigeria. He expressed the hope that the team will not relent in their objective to complement his National Working Committee members.
We need people like you to really come on board to help, because PDP, having shown its own capability, is a party not only for Nigeria, is a party for our region, is our party for our continent.
The PDP Reloaded project team also paid a courtesy call on the PDP leader, Chief Edwin Clark. He enjoined them to showcase PDP's achievement at the grassroots.
Well, this country belongs to all of us. We have no other place to go to. That has been my slogan.
In Abuja, Femi Johnson, NTA News.
Participants at a one-day meeting on roadmap to a sustainable electoral system in Nigeria are calling for evaluation of 2011 general elections for the nation to overcome identified challenges in 2015. Correspondent Abdullahi Garba Benin Kudo reports that it was convened by the Transition Monetary Group with the support of Royal Netherlands Embassy in Abuja.
It was the coming together of coalition of civil society organizations under Transition Monitoring Group and the academia to evaluate INEC and the electoral process in Nigeria generally for Nigeria to have free and fair elections in 2015. Both the Transition Monitoring Group officials and the Netherlands Embassy representatives said it was put together out of the need to prepare ahead.
Simply avoiding a fire brigade approach, which unfortunately is the order of the day more often than not in this part of the world.
I would like you to look, for example, at the contestation of the elections of the chairman of the Governors Forum. If a small group of 36 cannot agree on and respect the outcome of a democratic election, then what are the prospects for elections involving millions?
Various speakers representing civil society organizations and the academia stress the need not to overblow the success of 2011 elections, as there are many gray areas that need to be addressed.
The greatest lesson that INEC should learn is to remain humble. Now, this humility will go a long way in helping them devise more effective ways of blocking those leakages that have been identified in the system.
More importantly, majority of Nigerians need to be interested. Election is rigged only because people don't show up.
The Transition Monitoring Group is a coalition of over 700 human rights and civil society organizations. In Abuja, Abdullahi Garba Kudu, NTA News.
As part of the dividends of democracy and the realization of the transformation agenda, the federal government says it will deliver the Great Green Wall Initiative of the Sahara to the people of Nigeria within the next 3 years. Minister of Environment Adiza Ibrahim Melafia said this at the flag-off of field operations of the Great Green Wall in Kebbi State. Environment correspondent Aisha Bello Mustafa reports.
According to statistics, Nigeria loses about 350,000 hectares of land every year to desert encroachment. This is because the Sahara Desert is advancing southwards at the rate of 6% every year. This has led to demographic displacements in villages across 11 states in the north. It is also estimated that Nigeria loses $5.1 billion every year due to rapid desert encroachment. With this peril in sight, President Jonathan in May approved 10 billion naira for the Great Green Wall to tackle desert encroachment.
Since 2006, this program has been dormant. I want to say that gladly, under the transformation agenda of President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, there is now a drive that this becomes reality.
Putting the trees back alone is not the solution. We have to also take awareness very serious and maybe improve on our farming methods.
In every local government, we shall establish a hectare of an orchard. At the end of the program, this orchard will be given back to the local government.
The field projects are replicated in the 11 frontline states, while funding will be a shared responsibility of the 3 tiers of government, development partners, and the private sector. Appropriate species for the project were selected for their ability to adapt to the harsh conditions. Clean cook stoves were also introduced to guard against felling of trees. But how affordable will they be?
Usually when things like this come, they look like they're expensive. We're going in partnership and the states are subsidizing what the federal government has already subsidized.
Another question is how sustainable will the project be?
What we're doing, the difference is the concerted effort and the fact that it is now owned by the people.
The Great Green Wall Sahara Project, a contiguous green belt from Kebbi in the northwest to Yobe in the northeast, will rehabilitate 225,000 hectares of degraded land, enhance food security, reduce rural poverty, and generate employment for about 500,000 people in its first year of implementation. Aisha Bello Mustafa, NTA News.
Moving on to judiciary, the fastest means for Nigeria to political and socio-economic development is the enforcement of the rule of law at all levels, which will be best reflected through its constitutional provisions. This was a submission of concerned Nigerians at a one-day symposium on the review of the 1999 Constitution and its impact on judicial reforms. Femi Okewo reports.
As Nigeria inches closer to yet another constitutional amendment, stakeholders have continued to show great concern on how effective the Nigerian constitution can be in pushing political, constitutional, and socio-economic development. One such show of concern is the symposium organized by the Rule of Law Development Foundation.
I totally agree with you on the urgent need for judicial reforms if our democracy must deliver on the expected promises.
Problems are real and very serious. The consequences of allowing them to further deteriorate will be very tragic and utterly irresponsible.
And while they all have different ways of putting out their concerns, they all seem to be united in the fact that the rule of law component of the Constitution, as depicted by the judicial reform, is the best way to ensure greater benefits for all Nigerians.
That the office of the Attorney General of the Federation of States is too important to be combined with that of the Minister for Justice or Commissioner for Justice.
The outcome is indeed not what we really are bothered about. Is that every aggregate of views must be considered. And in keeping with democratic traditions, let the majority, the preponderance of opinions, let it hold sway.
Not many people know that the rule of law applies to everybody and that it helps to create a level playing ground for all citizens. Stakeholders expect that the judicial reform component of the Constitution will go a long way in ensuring a structured and ordered society, which is what we need most at this point in time. In Abuja, Femi Okewo, NTA News.
In the meantime, the Federal High Court in Abuja has fixed July 8, 2013 for hearing on an application for bail of 3 Lebanese arraigned before it for allegedly being in possession of cache of weapons without lawful authority to do so. Correspondent Abdul Fattah Adidiro reports that the Defense Counsel has filed an application for bail of the accused persons, seeking an enforcement of their fundamental rights. His report.
At recent hearing of the case of alleged illegal possession of arms and ammunition leveled against 3 Lebanese, namely Mustafa Fawaz and his business associates Abdullah Tahini and Tala Ahmad Furoda, owners of Amigo Supermarket, the 3 accused persons pleaded not guilty to the charges. The accused persons, who have been arraigned in connection with a cache of weapons discovered in Kano, are said to have links with the military wing of Hezbollah in Lebanon.
We have now received the motion for their bail, and we intend to oppose it vehemently. We are going to file a counter affidavit and a written address, and arguments have been adjourned to the 8th of July.
The Defense Counsel had earlier filed an application for bail of the accused persons, demanding 3 billion naira as compensation over the arrest and subsequent detention, as well as sealing off of their business premises. Justice Adeni Ademola, however, fixed July 8th for hearing of arguments in respect of application for bail of the accused persons. Meanwhile, the court has ordered that the accused persons be remanded in SSS custody until the adjourned date. In Abuja, Abdul Fattah Adediran, NTA News.
Senate Committee on Culture visits National Theatre and police parade suspects. Let's now join Abdullahi in our Lagos Network Center. Abdullahi, is over to you.
Thank you for joining us in Lagos, and Shegun, it's good to see you. President Goodluck Jonathan says his administration will encourage leadership institutions in the country to develop a robust and comprehensive roadmap that will help entrench true leadership legacy in Nigeria. The president stated this in his address delivered on his behalf at the 5th Annual Conference of the Academy for Entrepreneurial Studies in Lagos. Ken Igegulge has details.
It was a convergence of academicians and entrepreneurs across the country. The purpose was to articulate and develop a roadmap towards providing lasting solutions to the leadership challenges facing the country. The present administration is focused on entrenching quality leadership for Nigeria.
We believe that Nigerians are very enterprising people who, if the legal environment is created, would excel in whatever legitimate venture they are involved in.
I behoove the entire Nigerian people
to take determination, to be determined to progress, to change the focus of Nigeria.
Two former Nigerian leaders, General Abdulsalam Abubakar, Ernest Shonekan, and President of Liberia, Dr. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, agreed that the issue of leadership in the region is a collective responsibility that must not be left for government alone.
The institutions of state, the private sector, the media, and civil society institutions.
The transforming approach is such that it creates significant change in the life of people. It designs perceptions and values.
Transformational leadership, where you have the leaders and the followers working together to elevate their states, is very, very important.
The Academy for Entrepreneurial Studies Annual Leadership Conference is aimed at equipping entrepreneurs towards repositioning Nigeria as a regional leader in the emerging global economy. In Lagos, Ken Igbeluge, NTA News.
Ogun State Governor Senator Bikunle Amosun has appealed to the World Bank to assist the federal government and states in Nigeria to develop through diversification of the economy. Senator Amosun made the appeal at the country's performance portfolio review meeting organized by the World Bank in Abeokuta. Leko Agbonde completes the report.
The meeting was to identify the challenges and successes of the World Bank in achieving its objectives in 9 states that include Ogun, Lagos, Osun, Ekiti, Oyo, Ondo, Edo, Kogi, and Delta states. Some of the areas of review were agriculture, health, and infrastructure development. Ogun State Governor Senator Ibikunle Amosun described the 63% poverty level in Nigeria as declared by the World Bank as alarming and disturbing.
I will want to just implore you and solicit, not just for our state alone, but for all the states in Nigeria, that we need you to help us to grow. We need you to help us to develop.
The country director of World Bank, Mrs. Mary Francia Nelly, in her presentation noted that the fight against extreme poverty requires concerted efforts of all stakeholders.
It is trying to promote socially and regionally inclusive growth in Nigeria with essentially 2 pillars, one on promotion of growth and competitiveness, and the second focusing on inclusion and reducing vulnerability.
Representative of the Ministry of Finance, Mrs. Abidemi Aremu, commended the World Bank for its efforts in the area of development. In Abeokuta, Lekon Agbonde, NTA News.
To culture and tourism matters now. The Senate is to look into the concessioning of the National Theatre Igomu, Lagos, and its landed property. This was disclosed by the Chairman Senate Committee on Culture, Tourism and National Orientation, Senator Ahmed Hassan, during the committee's assessment tour of the National Theatre. Bola Jakim has that report.
Members of the Senate Committee on Culture, Tourism and National Orientation were conducted around the facilities and landed property of the National Theatre by the General Manager and Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Kabir Yusuf. They were also briefed on the concession arrangement and the occupation of the premises by those the General Manager called illegal occupants. The concession arrangement was also presented to the committee members by the head of the consulting firm. Responding, Senator Barata said the committee needs to study the concession arrangement.
We will not be able to comment on the concession because we don't have the details. We are waiting for the details.
He also speaks on the budget allocation to the National Theatre.
We discover really the building really need assistance, and we'll try our best in the 2014 budget to make sure that we provide adequate money for the renovation of the building.
Members of the committee also had a stopover at the National Troupe of Nigeria, where the artistic director and chief executive officer, Mr. Martin Adaji, complained of lack of funds for the troupe to execute some of its programs. In Lagos, Bolaji Akim, NTA News.
2 kidnappers of a federal high court judge and a Jigbo local government chairman have been arrested by the Lagos State Police Command. Adawabio Betina completes this story.
The suspects, who were alleged to have been the brain behind the kidnap of Ejigbo local government chairman, Mr. Kehinde Gbangbeton, a sitting High Court judge, and other notable legation were arrested at a hideout in Agbawa in Ogun State. The Commissioner of Police, Mr. Omar Omanko, noted that these suspects were arrested after a heavy gun battle.
They will kidnap somebody where they have traffic rules. Some of them will come in that uniform to control traffic. People have to be more cautious while dealing with people.
The two suspects also commented.
How many times you don't go prison?
Only once, sir.
He just like I'm the manager in Ghana. What are you managing? There's one big restaurant. He rent the land for 3 years.
7 suspects were said to have been injured during the shootout. The gang was said to be operating between Ghana and Nigeria. Some items recovered includes 4 AK-47 rifles, 28 AK-47 magazine fully loaded, over 100 round ammunition, army uniforms, a Honda CRV, and a Nissan Pathfinder. From Lagos, Adobe Obiechina, NTA News.
And that's our contribution from Lagos. It's back to you, Shagun, for more on Nationwide.
A very thank you to Abdullahi. Nigeria is hosting the second high-level meeting of the Global Power Women Network Africa, where core issues on the progress of women in the African society will be the center of discussion. Correspondent Temina Mahmood reports that the Minister of State Foreign Affairs, Professor Viola Onwuleri, who gave the indication, will take over the presidency of the Global Power Africa during the meeting.
It is an acknowledged reality that women and children continue to be the most vulnerable in the African society, as they are more prone to HIV/AIDS and poverty. In view of reducing the scourge of HIV/AIDS and other factors related to women, stakeholders of the Global Power Africa say the conference will focus on promoting gender equality and women empowerment.
The purpose, objectives, and expected outcomes to review and identify strategies facilitating the implementation of these global and regional commitments for women and girls and all that.
Other speakers underscored the importance of women resourceful participation in the political arena as a catalyst for development of the African continent.
We observe clearly that women are not getting the fair share where they should be.
When women enter, when women are deciding, ignorance will go out of the city, poverty will go.
The initiative of the Global Power Africa is in collaboration with Africa Union and UNAIDS. Leaders from across the African continent are expected at the conference. In Abuja, Femina Mahmood, NTA News.
As part of efforts to diversify the economy, thereby reducing overdependence on oil, the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission is to partner with Kano State government to develop the non-oil sector of the economy. Chairman of the commission, Elias Umba, stated this during an interactive session with a delegation from Kano, led by the Deputy Governor, Abdullahi Ganduje, who represented the governor. He said, considering that revenue from the oil sector is exhaustible and non-renewable, also with the volatility in the international oil market prices, there is the need for states and local governments to take advantage of the Natural Resource Development Fund and the Ecological Fund to develop the non-oil sector in order to boost their revenue base. The Kano State Deputy Governor said the present administration in the state has adopted a three-style approach to speed up the revitalization of the economy by sinking over 7 billion naira in the development of agriculture, solid minerals and tourism. He therefore said in order to complement these efforts, the state requires the infusion of over 272 billion naira from the Special Intervention Fund to finance the infrastructure projects, as well as solve the ecological problems in the state. The Ministry of Education has undertaken a pragmatic approach to address the elimination of social exclusion, discrimination, and other challenges confronting the vulnerable groups, with emphasis on those living with albinism. Franka Uzoma Olua reports that a pioneering project of hope and empowerment for albinos was launched in Abuja.
The MDG-sponsored Albino Foundation Empowerment Project is designed to reduce poverty and dependence rate of vulnerable population to enable them contribute to national development.
I urge you to intensify your advocacy and sensitization campaign and bridge the gap and imbalances between the populace and the vulnerable groups, especially among persons with albinism.
Described as a comprehensive and all-inclusive project, the initiative captures the present state of albinism and also provides strategies on ways of integrating them into government programs through the MDG office.
We must work collectively to stop all forms of discrimination against them, and by our firm support and individual understanding, help to alleviate the living challenges encountered by vulnerable groups in our dear country.
Dr. Joseph Wyers represented former President Shehu Shagari, who is the grand patron of the Albino Foundation.
To further exploit the possibility of increasing the number of beneficiaries from 370 persons this year to at least 1,000 persons by next year.
We will train people in specific skills and then give them what we call a resettlement package. That means if you're